What's up, everyone, and welcome to MFC International's Zoom interview with Giorgio Ammirabile. Giorgio, we're pleased to have him on today. He was born and raised in Florence, Italy. He has a bachelor degree in music and performing arts. We'll actually get into music a little bit later. He began his fashion journey in New York in 2005. He's been a creative director, a stylist, and a fashion editor, actively working in Europe, the US, and Asia. He's been all over the world. He and I got to meet in Milan years ago. His work is featured in all the major fashion publications, and he's worked as a creative director, a stylist. He's been a fashion writer and done commercial projects for brands that we've all heard of, like Versace, Lanvin, Max Mara, Tom Ford, Woolrich, Guess, Luisa Villaroma, Damiani, Hugo Boss, Eleventy, Francesca Liberatore, Nava Design, and many more. He's been in all of the fashion magazines we've heard about: Vogue, Vogue Man, GQ, Esquire, Bazaar, Bazaar Man, Numero, Elle, Glamour, Cosmopolitan, and so many more. He's a lecturer and a professor of fashion styling and fashion marketing, the European Institute of Design, and he lectures at Florida State University and Kent State at their campuses in Florence. So, Giorgio, benvenuto. Yeah, we're excited to have you. Really excited to have this conversation. We've talked about it for a little while. I know you've been involved in our community for years, and yeah, where are you streaming in from today?
I'm in my home in Tuscany, where I've been since COVID began, basically. Let's say in 2019, I reactivated my working visa for the US with the intention to move back to New York, where I lived for a number of years. But then COVID came, changed all the game, and I've been in Tuscany since then, also because Milano was hit pretty badly. As a city in particular, so it was locked for like months and nothing was happening.
Wow.
A lot of us in communication were literally, left out of work for many months. I mean, I basically was on hold for almost a year without doing almost anything. So I decided to go back to where I come from, which is a way better place to quarantine or to just, live in without having a precise activity. So I came back to Tuscany, where I am now.
Yeah, that's a beautiful part of Italy. I've been there once, and I had a friend who was spending time in Italy during quarantine out in the countryside, and I was like, hey, I thought Italy got hit the hardest, and he's like, no, it's really awesome out here. Like, not like they don't even know the virus is here almost out in the country. So
yeah, same for us.
That's awesome. I'm glad that worked out like that. It was kind of rest. It was a kind of an unanticipated rest for a lot of us, I think.
Yeah, it was also for me like quite an interesting year where a lot of things were shaken. A lot of my activity was literally zeroed, which is problematic for me because I'm like a workaholic and a hyperactive person, and have a lot of activity, not one, like many. Wow. So not having activities was quite kind of a struggle.
Yeah,
but it was a fantastic year of growth for me, like personal and spiritual growth.
Wow.
And having to reground myself on different foundations than I have done so far. So of course, for all of us, our activities kind of like represent us, and we kind of like it's a little personal card. I do this, I am that.
Right.
Well, this year, all that was shaken, and it was amazing. Amazing to see that our only foundation is Christ, and if you don't found yourself on it, at some point, whatever you do will be shaken. So, wonderful lesson for me, but difficult, but wonderful.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome. It teaches us to keep the main thing,
Absolutely.
Which is Jesus, and just come back to that. Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing. First question I want to ask you, is there a recent project? I know you said you were on hold for about a year with a lot of things, but Is there a recent project? Have things started to open up? Is there a recent project that you can tell us about?
Well, since they allowed again, at least in Italy, the big events, including trade shows and shows. So the first one started in July in Florence with PT, and then it followed with Milan Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week. Since those events were confirmed, things started moving again.
Okay.
Of course, the whole manufacturing world never stopped. So there was always a request of objects
Right.
for the shop. But
Right.
anything that has to do with communication, which is the side that I work in,
Right.
really stopped because there was no events, no travels, no nothing. Since June, July, we started again having activities. And I want to say that from September, my work really picked up way more than has been for the past year. Today, and which is my upcoming project,
Yep.
I've been doing some office work to plan this story for GQ, the Russian GQ.
Okay.
They want a story specific about the Olympics, which will be published on the February 22 issue.
Okay.
So it's like an editorial fashion story. So trying to coordinate photographer coming from England, one model coming from Hamburg, one other model coming from England, and see if like it's doable, because now with all these restrictions and also with traveling quarantines, this and that, so it's a little bit of a coordination. But yeah, that's the project I'm working on.
Wow, that's awesome. And so it will be in Russia. You'll shoot in Russia.
No, it will be shot in Italy, in Milano.
Okay.
Yeah, much easier.
Okay.
But it's for the Russian GQ. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And then just over, your over a decade and a half career, are there any jobs or experiences that were, say highlights that come to mind that you can share?
Well, there's been a lot of beautiful opportunities. Some that I was really able to take and make them alive. Others that I thought I was ready for it, but I really wasn't. So you have to be realistic with the things that you're able to do. Right. Yeah, I did a series of jobs for the Peruvian government, which one of, I don't know if you know that, but like one of their main national how do you say, exporting item? That's how you say it? One of the things
one of the main exports,
yeah, is textile, in particular like fabrics like alpaca, whatever. So they do a lot of events dedicated to that, to promote their own manufacturing around the world. And so they have like fashion events specific for alpaca. They have a fashion week. And so I started collaborating to bring Italian designers to Peru whenever they were doing events like that. And there was one in particular that was fantastic, especially because for the location and everything that was happening, which was up on the Andes.
Okay. Oh wow.
A town where a lot of the how do you say, the
like workers, manufacturers?
No, what is the name for cows? You have the cowboy, and for alpaca, what do you have?
The riders, the riders.
Yeah. Those people that grow alpacas. Let's put it that way.
Okay, they're the herders, or okay.
I don't know the name in English, but anyway,
the people that work with them raise alpacas.
Raise alpacas, correct. So there is one town in particular. So they did this huge event, and then they offered us to stay a bit longer and go to Machu Picchu and visit and everything else. So it was like really, really fantastic experience. Really beautiful to be out there. So yeah, that would be like one of those. But there has been some amazing experiences in New York, in Milano, in Paris, in London. Monday I was at the British Fashion Awards, and then there was an after party in the evening with all these, the biggest representatives of the fashion, British fashion world or international fashion world. So these are like, those are the events that if you're in this industry, they feel kind of exciting. And
Yeah, like everybody's there. It feels like everybody's there. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Um, well, man, that hope that gives people kind of a little taste of kind of your day to day and kind of what you've gotten to experience. And wanted to kind of shift and just talk about, you've had the opportunity to work with people, individuals, both behind the camera, in front of the camera, who, for all intents and purposes, seem to have everything, seem to have kind of arrived. Maybe, we'll get to this later, but, in America, the world, we deify certain people and we look at them like, wow, they have it all together. If I could only get to that level, right? Mm-hmm. And, but you've probably seen how, and, we know in the industry, there's a lot of drugs and sex and just everything the world has to offer has been, they have access to this, right? And so how have you seen, or what are some common struggles that you've seen people go through, or struggles that you've had, being in the industry, and kind of how you've overcome them or dealt with them, or seen other people cope with those struggles, or, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the one thing that I've seen when I moved to the States, and especially I started living in New York and doing developing a fashion career there, I noticed how, in particularly, Americans were so attracted to the world of celebrities. And I remember one American friend, which was working working for Viacom.
Okay.
And we started hanging out, and he was saying, like, Giorgio, you are living the American dream. And I said, like, but what's the American dream? Well, coming from nowhere and then all of a sudden finding yourself working in Hollywood with celebrities. And I'm like, yeah, but what kind of dream is that? It's like, it's not a regular job. Yes, I do admit that. Right, and of course, it's like a beautiful part of it. But it's also, there is also like normal dynamics as any other job, like struggles and difficulties. And, behind that moment of like playfulness of being on a set and having fun, then you really are doing a job, which sometimes it's not very much paid. And it's very complicated for a lot of dynamics and a lot of things that, comes up on a regular base. And you're like, okay, well, this is actually difficult. So, but I was surprised to see how for a lot of, like, let's say, people that were not part of it, it all looked so attractive just for the fact that you were dealing with, known people, like famous people. My experience with so-called famous people has always been complicated, in the sense that every time, not in the beginning, because of course it was a new thing and I was excited about it, but I do remember that already from the first so-called celebrity shoot. So we did a great series of projects with celebrities for European magazines, for US magazines. And I worked for some time on it when I was in the States. Notice how complicated it was to work with that kind of environment and with that kind of people. For many different reasons, attitude reasons, expectations, this incredible, like, self-centered attitude where it's all about the celebrity, it's nothing about you. So it doesn't matter how much you've worked to prepare all this. If the celebrity in the morning wakes up and decides she's not going to the shoot for whatever reason, you can wait in the studio and, like, lose your money and lose your time and lose waiting for someone that will never show up. And for me, it was like, wow, aren't we all working in the same industry, and I'm promoting you, you're part of my project, but it's like, it's a mutual thing. Right. And as an Italian, I was a bit hard for me to understand. And as an Italian, I was having reactions which were like, oh, what? This is not respectful. They have to come. And I remember my agent was like, no, with celebrities, you always have to kind of like play along. You have to be okay. You never have to get angry. I'm like, well, but, we're both working. I mean, it's like, she's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing. So it's like, we have to find a common ground to collaborate. That to say that it's the behind the curtain was going on a lot of dynamics which were very complicated and mostly had to do with this self-perception of I want to say omnipotence, like I can do and I can say and I can decide what I want, and everybody else will adapt eventually. Which ultimately was probably their regular way of working,
right?
Especially because, or I mean, their regular way of acting, because people that surrounded them were like supporting that kind of action.
Enabling. They were enabling. Yeah.
And when I finally got close to a few of them, or not the men, but with some, because I've always been a very person. I love relationships. I really love to deal with people. Besides my job, I don't care. What I'm really interested in, like developing relationship, friendships. I'm a very relationship guy. When I did manage to get along with some of these people, I mean, maybe because we shot together more than once, so we were in the same place more than once. Then you start getting to know the person. You see what incredible struggle, not to mention the incredible loneliness that a lot of these people live, because there is a lot of like yes men and yes women around them, but you don't know who their friends are. And they also know, they say that we don't know who our friends are. We don't know if like people are saying yes because of the benefit that come with us or because they really mean well. So there was a lot of loneliness, a lot of like insecurity, and a lot of like, having this very hard, self-centered character to make up for everything else that was missing. So I never felt, after past the beginning of it, I never felt really attracted that much to that kind of environment, because I did see the struggle, and I was like, I will work with it, but I will not look for it. And in fact, I often even we started like bouncing celebrity projects more than we did. We said like, no, sorry, not interested. But and I'm generalizing. We had beautiful experiences. There were some fantastic people. I'm talking in general. So there's a little bit of everything: positive, fantastic people, not so fantastic people. So all kind of things. But it is what came to me out of these experiences was a lot of loneliness, a lot of like intoxication from a world that tells you you are this, you are that, you're special, you're amazing, you're this, you're that, and then you just find out that you're like anybody else.
Yeah.
Dramatic.